Myself and many other people use a stretch of roadway on the N1 FW de Klerk Boulevard as you're making your way into the CBD. It's on the left-hand side at the Church Street off-ramp. You would then see encampments, informal dwellings that have been in that area for some time now. Now it's land that's owned by Transnet. It straddles the neighborhoods of Woodstock and Salt River. But now a Western Cape High Court has made an court order to evict people from that site following what residents say are complaints of crime in the area. But human rights organization Ndifuna Ukwazi, they're arguing that the judgment unfairly stereotypes all the occupiers as criminals and wrongfully absolves the city of Cape Town from providing emergency accommodation. Inga Dyantyi is a legal researcher at Ndifuna Ukwazi. What is what do you believe to be the central legal flaw you believe the court made in reaching this judgment?
Okay, hi Lester. Just to correct you a bit, I'm an attorney at Ndifuna Ukwazi. I'm not a legal researcher. But yes, so there are two main principles that I think the court puts forward that are very incorrect. So the first one is this notion that if you live in a crime hotspot, right, whatever the city terms to be a hotspot for crime, that you are implicated, that you are associated with that crime by implication. It's the likelihood, it has to be you guys who are committing these criminal acts. So no more proving, no more burden of proof, no more connecting particular crimes to particular people, which is what we asked for in the papers. The court just said it's highly likely. That's what the city said as well, which is a very dangerous proposition in this country. The second dangerous proposition or principle that the court puts forward is that the city is not obliged in a mass eviction like this, because there were 161 people before the court who are going to be impacted by this judgment, but there are way more people than that living on that piece of land. And the court just said it's fine for the city not to grant emergency accommodation because of it being a crime hotspot, and secondly, because some of the people are foreign nationals who are undocumented, which is just not correct legally.
Inga, I could give you scores and scores of testimonies from cyclists who argue that they were attacked on that stretch of the My City pathway at and around the Woodstock My City station. Many then documented testimonies that saying if people were robbed, the perpetrators then run into that informal settlement. Yes, I can concede not everyone may be a criminal, but the settlement there itself does breed a certain level of criminality in which ordinary Cape Townians have been hurt and mugged in that section.
Can I make an analogy, please, Lester, if you allow me? So if you know that by the N2, there's a Nyanga informal settlement by the N2 by the airport, right? That's where the city now wants to build a wall because there's been a lot of, incidents where motorists are being, stabbed, robbed, whatever the case may be, or coming from the airport or driving past that stretch of N2, which is by that informal settlement in Nyanga. And so essentially what we are now saying is that the people who live in that informal settlement, all of them are responsible for those, random acts of violence that happen there, which are wrong, mind you. We're just holding everyone there who lives there responsible. The implication of this on people who live on the Cape Flats in general. So the truth of the matter is, and many of us live in crime hotspots. It's not unique to that stretch of, Woodstock area. But the solution is not to deprive people of their rights as a response to that. The solution is to deal with the crime itself. And if an eviction is proven, if it's just and equitable, then emergency accommodation, the normal procedure, the law already allows for these things to be handled correctly. And this is a overreaction that is completely unlawful and unjustified. So crime is a reality in this country, but you deal with the crime. You don't paint everyone with the same brush and deny them of their basic constitutional protections because of it.
Let me counter with another analogy. The city of Cape Town is looking at shutting down a Pela Posse. You know what a Pela Posse is? A place where people go and consume their substances, maybe get their supply of substances. But this is an ordinary house. And in an ordinary house, there may be children, there may be elderly people who may not directly participate, but they also get the secondary smoke from a mandrake's net. You're getting the picture.
Yes.
Isn't this the same principle? We have to shut down this Pela Posse. We have to shut down this settlement on Kulenborg in order to even find safe place for those who are not involved in criminality?
I'm actually very happy that you brought up vulnerable groups of people, Lester, because even in this group of people, right, these are hundreds of people who live there, who've lived there for close to 10 years, right, which has been accepted by the court. Some say 15 years they've lived there. These are communities of people, right? And what community of people will tell you is that we would never allow a criminal to live amongst us. We want to be safe too. So when you go speak to the clients, I had to deliver the news to them that the court says you guys are criminals. And you had to see the reactions, So we have the elderly here. There are people who are over 60 who live on these sites. We have children. There are children who live in these sites, and the court is aware of this. There are women-headed households. There are people with disabilities, and Mr. Khan, who is in a wheelchair, who lives on these sites. So this is a community. This is a community of people. This is not, I'm a Ponzi house. Sorry, I misheard. I'm not sure what house you say, but this is a community of people. Hundreds of people who've lived there for many, many years, and there are different characteristics amongst them that they simply cannot be the people committing the crimes. These are communities. Yes, there might be one or two people. I mean, every community has one or two people. But it's not correct to paint everyone. And what the clients will tell you is that because of this area, criminals run here. So they're not from here. They come here to hide. They run here. So to your point, maybe there is some merit in that the settlement itself creates a hiding spot. However, the solution is not to punish the people who live there. The solution is to follow the PI Act. And if you're going to evict people, you've proven that you have the right to do that, then give them emergency accommodation. Because where are those people supposed to go now is the question.
Well, where is there space for emergency accommodation? The city would say it is a space called Volverrivier, which is about 12 kilometers up the West Coast Road. And many people who are offered that space, they would then argue, well, it's too far from work. Is the city not caught between a rock and a hard place where the emergency accommodation would be available? It's just not here.
Can I tell you something that is completely, we don't even have to get into that discussion because the city has said in its papers that as a principled stance, right? I'm quoting now from the papers of the city deposed to by the mayor of the city, Jordan Hill Lewis, which is unusual for the mayor himself to depose to affidavits in court, but that was the nature of this matter. So the city has taken a principled stance not to offer anything. They're not saying we don't have. They say as a principled stance because these people are criminals. Because they're criminals, they are not deserving. So we don't even have to get into what's available, what's not, because the city has said, on principle, we refuse, which is part of the outrage.
I take that just because they are the most vulnerable, the most cast away of society, that they are not deserving. But similarly, Cape Townians who make use of a My City bicycle lane, people who make use of the Kolomborg side, there are plans for development for another train station in that area. That can't continue until these people have been moved off this Transnet land. So wouldn't you agree that the development of our economy, the peace and safety of people to cycle through that bicycle lane, don't they also deserve some rights here?
I mean, absolutely, Lester. But what courts have to do is to balance interests. Balance the interests of the vulnerable people living there, who've lived there for years, the communities, the children, the women, the people with disabilities who live there. That's their home, right? And they are poor people. Okay, balance their interests against the interests of safety of the cyclists, because yes, the cyclists must be safe as well. We're not disregarding the safety of the cyclists, they must be safe as well. But we must balance these interests, not just paint one group of people as you don't matter, these people matter more. That is the dangerous proposition. So we need to balance these interests. And if the court had ordered emergency accommodation, like, okay, you have to move here because of these development interests of Transnet, because of the safety, because of this, you have to move here. However, we will make sure that the city provides alternative accommodation. That would have been a balancing of interests. That's what we asked for. We said if you're going to grant the eviction, then please provide emergency accommodation. Then you balance everyone's interests.
Inga Dyantyi, we have to leave it there, speaks for Ndifuna Ukwazi. Listening in on that conversation was Councillor Iahn McMahon. Your ward falls over this area, the contested Transnet space, plans for development there, a new transport corridor, concerns over the years over safety of cyclists. Firstly, you of course welcome the decision by the Western Cape High Court to grant an eviction order.
Morning, Lester. Morning to your readers. Yes, obviously the city was not the applicant here. We were just a respondent. But we've had numerous meetings with the pedal power and Stay Wider of the rider, the cyclist community. The area has been a hotspot for crime, correct?
the argument from Inga there is that, yes, there may be people who commit crime, who may store their ill-gotten goods there, but the majority of people are living in environments of vulnerability, are children. Many of them are not criminals, and to tar an entire group as criminals, they believe that's unfair.
Well, that's their view, and that's, the side that they're coming from. As the ward councillor, I've come from the side of the broader community, and the amount of crime, hotspots. We even had a mugging that ended up in death with Dennis Harmer that came from that area. That you have to look at the facts on the table. You have to look at the amount of incidents of robbery with weapons. You have to look at all those things. Stonings of cars. It was a serious crime hotspot.
Iahn McMahon, really appreciate your call.